Hello and welcome. This is Bhardwaj, and I'm starting these really good lessons called super quick fundas. A lot of students are complaining that they're not able to approach their texts in the syllabus. They're not able to start with original reading, and they need some kind of help. So rather than going on internet resources and looking up for summaries, which are not good for your UPSC preparation, because if you read a summary and then you approach an original text, it is going to ruin your original thinking. So I'm going to present these very quick video lessons. They will give you some help with your approach, with your what do you say, passage into a literary text. So you should be able to read original texts with a bit of help from these videos. These are not spoon-fed videos, so I will only tell you as much information as is uh, really necessary for you to ease your passage into your literary text. So guys, if you're preparing for UPSC with your English literature as your optional, you must read original text. So this video series, super quick fundas, I'm going to just make it a bit more easier for you to approach your literary texts. Right, so we're going to start with a passage to India, which when in my 14 weeks course, this is the first text that we start with. It's part of paper 2 and it's a novel. Right, let's start with the author and his background. E.M. Forster, right? That is the name of the author, and his full name is Edward Morgan Forster, and he was a highly celebrated English author. He wrote this novel in 1924. He was actually awarded a very highly prestigious award, James Tate Black Memorial Prize, that is instituted in the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. He got the award in 1924. This novel, A Passage to India, the name is taken from a very famous poem by Walt Whitman. The poem is titled Leaves of Grass. Poem is titled Passage to India from the collection Leaves of Grass. It's an 1870 poem. This novel is has been frequently listed into top 100 novels of all times. The latest listing was by Time magazine, and they put it in the all-time 100 greatest novels in the English literature. So this is a 1924 novel. So when we talk about 1924, I always ask my students to consider what was the state of India in 1924. It was under British Raj. It was going through a really turbulent and aggressive independence movement, right? Remember Chora Chori and a lot of stuff happening in 1920s. Mahatma Gandhi at the peak of his powers. So you always have to consider what was happening in India in 1920s when this novel was published. This is based on Forster's experience of visiting India. He visited India in 1920 and again in 1922, I think, before visiting the novel. Remember, it used to take a long time by sea to travel to India from Britain. So he visited, and this book actually, he hoped to capture his experiences of what he saw and experienced in India, right? But always remember, even though he was considered a liberal and a secular, which is a very modern word, his experiences in the novel has have often been called racist and biased, which you have to think about when you're reading the book. So when you're reading the book, when you're reading the novel, always think that this was written in 1924. India was fighting for independence, and this is written by an Angrez. So is this an Englishman's view of India? You have to keep this question in mind. I'll keep throwing questions at you, right? So note this down. Is this an Englishman's view of our country? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Publishing date we understand, 1924. Background we understand. E.M. Forster was one of the first modernist novelists who actually also wrote a lot about the aspects of novel. He wrote a book called Aspects of the Novel, and he was a theorist of the modern form of the novel, right? So he was quite an intelligent guy, very well read, very intelligent, very respected, one of the most respected novelist of Britain, and this is A Passage to India, by far his most celebrated work. Now, whenever we talk about a novel, we should always think in terms of the characters, right? So there are a lot of characters in the book, but only a handful of characters which are important. So when you're reading the book, always think about Cyril Fielding. How is he? What kind of a person is he? Ronnie Haslop, who's the son of Mrs. Moore. Haslop is the city magistrate. Mrs. Moore, an elderly English woman who seems to be very sympathetic to the Indians in the beginning. Adela is the young woman who is visiting India for the first time, and she's going to get married to Ronnie. She is the center of the plot in this novel in many ways. So keep an eye on Adela when you're reading the book. She is important. Dr. Aziz, by far one of our most important character, and the novelist Ian Forster has actually given him the most important and the largest scope and space in the book. So Dr. Aziz is very important. Always, right from page 1, you will see him until the last page. Professor Godbole. Some people consider him to be the stereotyped Hindu Brahman character, and this is how he is actually written by Forster. So when you're reading Professor Godbole, try to figure out what is his place in the book. And Fielding, who is the school headmaster, who's running a school in India, in the city of Chandrapur, he comes across as a sympathetic, liberal, good, one of the better Englishmen who talks sense. I wouldn't say he is somebody who's sympathetic and on the sides of the Indian, but he's somebody who talks sense. But he also believed that India is a muddle. Note this line down. India is a muddle. It's the most important concept of this book. And Fielding, who is by far the most sympathetic and liberal character of the book, he is saying this, that India is a muddle being a state of confusion. So if he believes this, imagine what other characters and what other typical English people think about India. So this is an important concept. This concept has come many times in UPSC exams. Now, what happens in the story? This is interesting, isn't it? What happens? I will not give you what happens in the story. I'll just give you a basic outline of the plot. So, two English ladies, Mrs. Moore, the elderly lady, and Adela, they arrive in India, and they want to see the real India. Then they meet Dr. Aziz, who is a stereotypical Muslim who likes the Mughal more than the British. And Dr. Aziz is an intelligent character. Then there is an attempt by Cyril Fielding to bring together people from both sides, English and the Indians. So they decide to visit caves. Now, when they visit caves, something happens at the caves. Adela Quested accuses Dr. Aziz of rape and molestation, sexual harassment inside the caves. Obviously, Dr. Aziz denies it. Cyril Fielding and Professor Godbole, who were supposed to be with them at the caves, they couldn't make it. So there are no eyewitnesses. Dr. Aziz is put to trial. The whole English fraternity is asking for blood. Cyril Fielding takes Dr. Aziz's side, but he is not sure what actually happened. Nobody is sure what actually happened. This becomes a theme of the book. What happened at the caves? Nobody knows. What happens in the end? Whether Cyril Fielding and Dr. Aziz remain friends, whether the the heat between the English and the Indians, it subsides, whether the possibility of friendship between an Englishman and an Indian takes shape or not. These are some of the concepts that UPSC is interested in when we talk about this book. So when you're reading this book, keep in mind first of all that the author is an Englishman who's come to India, and this book is his attempt of capturing his experiences of what he saw and felt in India. And he's writing about the British Raj as well, but he is under the reign of queen, so he cannot openly talk about things. So yes, he is talking about the racial prejudices that are happening under the British Raj, but he's not able to do it openly. Remember, it's 1924. There is a queen at the throne. British Raj is at its most powerful. So even if he wanted to criticize the British Raj, he cannot. So he's using literature, he's using symbols and metaphors to do it. But still, he is an Englishman, and this book can be viewed from that lens of post-colonial reading, where we can say that this book is an Englishman's perspective of India. Another important concept is the structure of the book. The book is structured into three sections. The first is the mosque, second is the caves, third is the temples. So why that structure? UPSC has asked for this. So when you're reading the book, think about it. Why that structure? Adelia's character is curious and important. Think about it when you're reading it. Mrs. Moore's character, Dr. Aziz's character, Cyril Fielding's character, Professor Goldbillow's character. You can get short notes of 10 marks on these character sketches. They're very easy to understand. The most important, one of the most important concept is the theme of friendship as explored by Forster in this book. The very first page starts with the exploration of three characters discussing whether it is possible to be friends with the English. This is the question they're asking. And the very last page of the novel talks about this, whether it's possible or not. So Forster is exploring whether friendship or mutual relationships are possible within the imperialistic premise of the novel, whether it is possible or not. So you have to answer that, whether it is possible or not. What do you think after your reading of the book? So these are the primary concepts that UPSC has asked in past. So these are the concepts you have to worry about when you're reading the book. And happy reading. Get back to me for any doubts you might have. And I think this video will help you approach the text with a bit more confidence. You have to work out the concepts, you have to work out the character sketches, you have to figure out the plot and all that. I've just given you a little rough roadmap that will aid you. Do let me know whether you like it or not, and do let me know what else can I include in it. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Bhardwaj signing off. Super quick fundas video series. Bye bye.